What will happen is I think the companies in pharmaceuticals that succeed will be those that learn faster and are able to generate positive returns to scale and knowledge, which is a little bit abstract and scientific. But if you look at that in the light of a research scientist today, our scientists are working with the nearly 1 petabyte of data we have. Almost all the analysis we do today is digital and based around sequencing of the human genome. Our scientists are linking data from pharmacokinetics and toxicology and clinical back to chemistry. So knowledge itself generated downstream is starting to act upon the knowledge earlier in the pipeline, changing the way production is done. We're mapping out receptors that are simply not characterized in the industry. And this building of a knowledge base, this codified, accessible information, knowledge building upon knowledge, will create new forms of IP, not just patents, but much more likely embedded knowledge and trade secrets that will be formidable barriers to entry caused by the CIO, caused by IT, caused by knowledge within the company. The second group of products, which is probably the majority of the industry, will be products where, frankly, they're not that differentiated. Me Too-like products, where you have to get out into the marketplace. We've always built products in the marketplace by doing clinical trials. But what matters today is not the doctor. What matters today is the person who's paying the bill, the payer. So when we do a clinical trial, we have a lot of data, but about 5,000 patients in it. Within a year of launch, you could have 100 times that much data out in the marketplace, in the hands of a United or a Kaiser Permanente or some other company. And so for us to begin to bring those data together around safety, pharmacovigilance, but also around market segmentation, where we start to prove the value of our drugs with specific groups of patients. This is where we'll get differentiation, and differentiation that's not just scientific around the molecule, but differentiated in the eyes of the person paying the bill. Again, data driving competitive differentiation. The third one that I play with a lot, we haven't done yet, but it's the one that interests me, is in the space of generics, which you don't think of my company as competing in, although in fact we have many billions of dollars, maybe nearly $13 billion of generics products right now. And what I puzzle with here is it's not hard to make the drugs, it's not hard to tablet the drugs, it's not hard to distribute the drugs. So if anybody can do it, why do we need to do it at all? Right? The real challenge in generics is not creating the product, but managing the pedigree, so that when the patient gets the product, they know it is properly made and safe and is what it's supposed to be. Right? You don't need hard assets to do that. I think it would be fabulous to think about how you can create that digital pedigree, because we can actually monitor manufacturing processes across the world. We can prove the security of the product across the supply chain. We've done this with counterfeiting. We've done it in terms of pharmaceutical tampering. Right? We can actually manage distribution. If there's some way I could get my product to you, right, without ever touching it, that would really transform the nature of pharmaceuticals, because we'd be able to manage a digital supply chain with IT providing the reliability and synchronization that made that possible. So I see the pharmaceutical industry starting to be part of an embedded ecosystem of suppliers, where the traditional benefits of, say, the traditional vertical assets we have start to break up. We become very specialized nodes doing what we do very well, embedded in an interdependent way across a network of companies. And the unit of construction, the unit of production will no longer be the company, but the network itself, with a number of players in trusted and transactional relationships across that network. That's where IT is taking the company at Pfizer. So the role of the CIO changes enormously here. First of all, operational excellence is an absolute must. Right? And recently we had a major disaster in one of our data centers, and within minutes we'd wiped out manufacturing in Sweden, Salesforce in Europe, the research center in Sandwich, the Eastern Seaboard, right through to La Jolla. The world went down in an hour. Right? We can bring the company to a standstill with a single method. Operational excellence is essential. And the challenge for me here as a CIO is creating accountability in my team when they no longer own the assets. They don't feel responsible for what they don't own. So if we give the ownership to you, how do I make them take ownership of that? The simplest anecdote I know is when I had my PC. I had trouble with my PC. I took it along to a guy and said, I've had this problem with the operating system. He said, oh, that's a well-known bug in the operating system. I said, I don't care. It doesn't work. And in that encapsulation is the difference between knowing the answer and owning the customer experience. So the biggest challenge I have as a CIO is that cultural change to get people to own what they've outsourced and not just say, well, it's not me, it's the vendor. The second big challenge on innovation is that we are starting to think about how we support business innovation. There's a lot of fluffy talk about innovation. For me, innovation is the targeted application of knowledge, or as Thomas Edison used to say, 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. And we are beginning to enable that inside the organization by creating very rich data schema, working with the line to reverse out business processes, and becoming very embedded in them in value. And this is not outsourceable. This is not something which we can give to you because it's very, very rich and embedded in the company. When I work with my team, they have to manage data not only for their own client, but for other people around the world now, and also with a life history for a product that might last 20 years. And thinking about how data is used over 20 years is not a natural event for most programmers. And so, again, it's a cultural shift for them to start thinking about the embedded life of data inside my company. So it's another major cultural change. And the other cultural change that's going on is the way we work with our colleagues themselves. They used to expect lifetime employment. Now you offer them a transactional relationship in which they expect to have flexibility, personal development, high rewards, and not necessarily a career. So I'm having to retrofit all the things in the organization around colleague engagement to effect that cultural transformation. I think I used the word culture about 5 or 6 times there. So I think my biggest job as a CIO is changing culture. Culture trumps strategy every time. And I didn't learn that from some Xenia-suited McKinsey consultant. I learned that from a hard-edge manufacturing guy in the Midwest who was achieving record levels of quality and cost reduction. And he taught me that even when you're downsizing, culture matters because it holds the place together. So a cultural agent. Now, having said all that, the thing that frustrates the heck out of me is that I'm not really doing what's really exciting right now. I think as these information assets get redistributed and reconfigured, the real exciting opportunity lies outside my business. And I can't capture these because my company wants to control industrial power relations that exist today, and it wants to sustain its own returns. But there is an amazing opportunity right now that you guys could go after, which is starting to think about how healthcare data is used by consumers. You already have basic skills in data processing. You already have skills in operation of data virtually. There is an opportunity to manage safety of data, monitoring of patients, reliability of systems, data provenance, using data outside of traditional forms, which is not happening, and I can't go after it because I'm always told healthcare data is private. You can't touch healthcare data, Jonathan. Our firm won't go near that. But I tell you, the future is already here. It's just not, as they say, evenly distributed. These things are happening, and people are starting to use healthcare data in a different way. I tried to explain at work that this is like banks. If you give a bank your money, they keep it. It's not actually protected by gold. It's just a promise. And then they invest that money for themselves, and they give you a tiny fraction of the returns back, 3% back. Right? And you go to take your money out, and they charge you for it. And then they sell your data to third parties to give you credit cards, and they aggregate it to do. If you went and did a business plan with a VC, they say, I've got this idea called a bank. I think it's a brilliant idea. They'd laugh you out of the room. Patients will never give up their financial data. Patients will give up their healthcare data because they want low-cost service, reliability, and they will trade off privacy for returns. And it frustrates me that I can't go after that. So I think that's a wonderful opportunity in this industry, since you manage things at distance virtually, that you guys should really be thinking about. And that's why I have this picture, which I keep on me, in front of me at work, which is René Magritte's picture of the tyranny of images. And you see this picture here. It's a pipe, right? It's a pipe. It's obviously a pipe. Except it isn't a pipe because Magritte tells us down the bottom in French, this is not a pipe. Right? Why is it not a pipe? Because it's only a picture of a pipe. And when I do my speech to you, I'm telling you a picture of what might be, and I'm showing you PowerPoint, and you can get a McKinsey report telling you. But it's not about creating the picture of a pipe. Ultimately, it's about making it happen, and I think that's the role of the CIO. Thanks.